presenter. Hopefully everyone can see the screen okay. If you even just want to give a thumbs up in the chat, one or two people will be perfect. And there's a couple of participants joining there now. Yep, great, Andrew. Thanks very much for confirming, and thanks, Charlotte. Okay, well, thanks everyone for joining us today. We're going to be doing a recap and looking at the trading analysis of Q1 and also forecasting what the Q2 looks like. Making sure there's nobody else trying to jump in. So no, we're all good to go. So obviously on a monthly basis, IRP publish your stats, and it very much is there's lots of opportunity in the e-commerce space. Today you've got myself, David Dixon, Head of Customer Success at IRP Commerce, and Richard Fraser, our Lead Customer Success Manager. I think most people on the call and in IRP are pretty familiar with ourselves, and have engaged a lot with you over the last few years. Today we're obviously always about the IRP vision. It's merchant first, and what this means. It's all about IRP coming together with the service providers and our merchants to give you visibility and control of your profits. IRP has the power to transform the outcomes of your e-commerce business and helping you grow. Just a few other people joined there, and we'll continue on. Today we're going to keep it short to about 25-30 minutes, and time at the end for a few question answers. The key contents for today's session is all around the maths behind e-commerce, looking back at January, February, March, how merchants have performed, looking at markets that have done well, markets that are in decline, and how we turn that around. Looking at Q2 and looking at sort of Richard and I's predictions based on what we're seeing day to day. We will cover off some success stories for IRP merchants. So there's been a lot of great successes already in Q1. In the last couple of weeks, there's been the latest IRP product release, and we'll go through at a high level some of the latest features. And we will have a webinar at the same time next Tuesday that will go through those details in a bit more in depth. And then we'll chat around the CSM function in 2023 as well.
Yeah, so first of all, just taking it to very sort of high level, I'm sure most of you on the call are familiar with the selling equation now. I think we've spoken about it with the agencies, with account managers, and with e-commerce managers, business owners. It's really just getting back to the whole sort of initiative of sales, conversion rate, and AOV, and focusing on those three metrics really to try and grow sales and grow profits there. Just we're thinking sort of the COVID boom that a whole lot of businesses experienced there, and lots of people or lots of businesses were selling online, prior to COVID, and then just through COVID, obviously a massive sort of tailwind there of sales, and lots of businesses just didn't really understand where those sales came from. And whenever you break it down really from the top level and simplify it, it's basically traffic, conversion, AOV, and that's what we really try and focus on within IRP. So just moving on from the sales or the sessions conversion AOV, then we're looking at profitability there for businesses. So lots of our businesses there will look at sort of top level sales, and if they see green numbers, everything seems to be going well. But actually, whenever you delve down into it a bit deeper, and you actually look at profitability, particularly using IRP first party data, it's really useful there. Looking at sales channels performance and seeing how profitability is going there in comparison to your top line sales. So we just have some of the keywords there that we sort of refer to when speaking to our merchants. So just looking at profits via the control of costs. So we've got e-commerce sales minus the cost of goods is your basic gross profit there. And then whenever you take your gross profit and you deduct your traffic spend, we refer to that as e-commerce gross profit. So you'll see e-commerce gross profit referred to quite a bit within Trader there. So that just gives you the definition of e-commerce gross profit. And then your e-commerce gross profit minus your overheads equals your net profit. And that's probably the most important one we all need to be focusing on, and keeping the lights on and keeping businesses running there online. So we'll just touch on that in a bit more detail as we go through the slides here.
And on net profit, obviously in e-commerce, your traffic spend is one of the biggest variables behind whether your business is profitable, whether it's growing, and how much you can invest in it. We have done a bit of analysis across a number of our merchants, and the average net profit for an e-commerce business ranges from 7% to 12%. And you'll obviously seen a lot of messaging around and content from ourselves and white papers around the service marketplace and efficiencies and controlling profits. And when you see what a real business's net profit is, it's kind of where we're always looking at how we can help you control your CPA, because if you have a 5% CPA or a 15% CPA, that is the difference between profit and loss in e-commerce businesses. Overall, then we on a monthly basis we publish all our stats, and these are accessible and visible to all merchants and the open world. In terms of markets that are doing well and have done well, sort of January, February, March. So there's merchants. We look at stats weekly and daily, and the fashion industry is one that has stood out in recent weeks, in that people are out buying new clothes, whether that's menswear, women's wear, pet care, kitchen and home appliances, and food and drink are growing upwards of 20, 30, 40%, etc. CPAs, what we've seen in March, January, February, March, January CPAs were pretty level with last year, and the same for February, but we've actually seen a 20% overall reduction in CPAs across the merchants as an average. Onto the right of the screen, obviously fashion and clothing have a lower CPA than last year, pet care, sports and recreation, home kitchen and home appliances, etc. So the markets are changing, and certainly by following the basic principles, there is always the opportunity to keep your CPA under control while growing your profits. On this slide, it's the market followers. Obviously, contrary to there's a subset of data. Fashion, clothing, and accessories is looking at about 10% behind, but we do have some merchants in that sector who are growing 60, 70, 80% plus, and we get later on in the slide to the success stories. We'll be highlighting a few of those. Electrical equipment, baby and child health and well-being, small sort of signs of growth year on year. And then to the slide on the right, you have the markets that the CPA costs are rising. However, there is certain instances where a business will have an objective that they want to increase their CPA, and that may be to drive more traffic, and where they have found a sweet spot where having a higher sales figure overall helps their net profit, because they've got their overheads, they've got their staff, and they need to get more volume through that. And again, as part of all this, profit is key. And as you'll see from the latest release and through these slides, we are simplifying e-commerce and bringing profit to the forefront of that, so you can see it very, very quickly.
Okay, so the next sort of sequence of slides, I think there's 3 or 4 slides here coming in a row. So really, I just want to ask the question of everybody on the call: are you completely aware of these figures in terms of? So we're looking first of all at revenue by location there. So if you're looking at revenue by location in March, you see predominantly international sales sitting there at 51.8%. And domestic sales at 48.2%. So it shows there's probably an expectancy from maybe some businesses out there that it's 90% domestic and sort of 10% international, but there is a sort of capability, the functionality there. I think IRP simplifies it well in terms of the sort of interface and design, multi sort of languages there, your interface and banners and your messaging can be tailored per country. You've got all your different feeds there. So there's over 170 different feeds out of the box with IRP. So there are merchants who are utilizing all that sort of functionality well, and that sort of ties in with the figures here that we're seeing, in the location sales. But I would encourage everybody on the call there just to be completely familiar with that. And if there is an ambition, just to try and branch out there, we're happy to go through that with you in better detail. We'll just move on to the next one then. So again, just come back on international sales data. The figures there from month to month. You can see there it's jumped significantly year on year. So obviously currency, sort of middle of last year, the GBP and the euro weren't maybe as strong against your US dollar and the Australian dollar, Canadian dollar. So we have seen a bit of an uplift in sales there, I think, internationally, and that's just shown here, sort of from I think August, September time 2022 with the light blue line there. But it's definitely worth looking in on, particularly if you want to drive additional sessions and traffic to your site there as well. Those territories can be opened up quite easily. If we're looking then at revenue by device, and I know with myself there and a few of the merchants I've been working with closely over the last few months, we're sort of probably guilty of jumping on calls there, via Zoom or via Google Meet, and we're straight away we're looking at the desktop site. And really the focus, I think, is mainly on the desktop. But actually, if we're looking at the breakdown of sales there again by device, you're seeing their mobile in March was 53.2%, or accounted for 53.2% of sales. So key that focus is really on optimizing the mobile site user experience as much as possible, every bit as much as the desktop. Now, I think any of the sites we've worked on, we do tend to get to it towards the end. But that's something David and I have spoken about, and probably account managers can look at there as well, is maybe bringing that more to the forefront, depending on the business that you're speaking to and you're working with. And then the last one there that we sort of talk about is the traffic channel data, and really maybe one of the most important ones in terms of looking at the service provider performance there. Obviously, within IRP, and we look at last click attribution there, and each of the channels, if you're looking at the sort of third parties there, attribution can be skewed quite significantly there. So within Trader, we can look at the channel summary. We can get a quick sort of overview of how channels are performing, how service providers are performing for you, and really focus in on trying to drive profitability in those channels and keep costs under control. You'll see there, like, paid search is the predominant one, and then next to that is your organic, your direct search there. And there is a few, like, there's sort of people thinking around the organic performance there around IRP sites, but you can see there in second place and making up sort of 30-40% of sales. And the functionality does allow you to grow that and that particular channel significantly there, and just actioning the correct tasks there, I think, against the channel. But definitely worthwhile delving into that and keeping on top of your traffic channel performance.
And with all the metrics that Richard's covered there, obviously on the call on IRP merchants, all sizes, from SMEs to large and independent retailers. These are essentially to kind of provide you guys with benchmarks. It's kind of where you go off with your account manager. You look at, are you below average, above average, and it kind of gives you something to kind of strive towards. So if 10% of your business is international, how do you get that to 20% to 30%? And again, using Trader, it's always looking at where your profitable sales are coming from. Traditionally in e-commerce, obviously email marketing has always been an important channel. Never more so much now that cookies are being kind of phased out, and it's all about first-party data, which is built in, and how the IRP system is architect. But the merchants that really are growing, they're driving sales through paid channels. They're collecting their organic sales, and they're turning those first-time customers into repeat lifetime customers using email marketing. So it's certainly a very, very important channel, and is only going to become more important for businesses as we move past the cookie era. And the next slide then is around an overview of the market and what we've seen in Q1. So tying this back to the e-commerce equation, in the top left you have visitors, you have conversion rate, in the top right average order value and sales data. So comparing as an IRP merchants as an average for Q1 has been relatively in line with sales last year. That said, we do have merchants growing anywhere from 20 to 100%. And we would see in the markets are still large, that there is the opportunity for merchants to grow with the right tactics and focusing on the right areas. In March, we did see a jump in conversion rate. And probably standing out to you is the bottom left graph with the jump in our average order values. We've seen obviously versus lockdown versus non-lockdowns, where during the COVID times average order values dropped because people were purchasing a lot more frequent because they had no other option than to purchase online. And we obviously have some merchants here actively working on that. But overall, sales are pretty much level with last year. They've been 1 or 2% up month on month. But we, as sort of an education piece, as CSM, as your agency account managers, we are always focusing on these three key levers, because those multiplied together is what does impact your overall sales number. And again, this is really just a reference point. You'll know what you're growing month on month, January, February, March, and then you can compare that to the IRP baseline. I seen an interesting stat recently. It was from the US. Now it was the US data statistics for retail and e-commerce. 20 years ago, e-commerce sales in the US made up 1% of overall retail sales. Now, 20 years on, it makes up 20%, and the prediction is that it will continue to grow by 10% year on year. So certainly, the data in the wider world is indicating that e-commerce is only going to continue to grow, and it's going to become a bigger and bigger piece of all retail businesses moving forward.
Just moving on then from the sales data, obviously we're looking at profitability and the CPA analysis here. So you do see a significant drop there in March. I think we're down about 21.57%. So we were trending sort of similar on 2022 figures in January and February. And then March, this just sort of correlates with, I think, closer work with service providers and maybe just educating merchants as well, and just knowing about the channels, how they perform, what they should be looking for within the channels. And I think following on from today's session, there will be more detailed, in-depth sort of webinars or training sessions there on the channels and how you understand them a bit better. But March there signifies a good shift in the way CPA is coming down there across all merchants. So it's just one to be focusing in on and what you can do to try and improve that further.
The next slide then is around sort of Q2 forecasting. So say we publish the stats every month. You get your emails. We benchmark e-commerce managers, service providers, account managers on growth. And there's not a lot of outside factors, but in the data we're looking at day to day, based on the last 3 months and year on year, we do feel there's nothing major going to shift in the market that would make us believe that we do believe Q2 will follow very much in line with last year. Now we are actively working with account managers, agencies, service providers to help merchants grow at a profitable level. But I would say you could use the baseline from last year as a benchmark, and then you can see whether you're above or below that. On this table, you will also see that as retail Q4 is predominantly where the majority of sales happen. We have been looking at ways with merchants how we almost make them less reliant on Q4. And there is a few theories out there around like the four pillars of e-commerce, and about what you can do between January and September to almost level out your year, where your sales probably between January and September will be more profitable than they will be in November and December. Obviously, historically, you've Black Friday, you've Christmas sales, and it's more about volume in Q4, but it's looking at the strategies January to kind of September where you can get as many profitable sales as possible. One of the earliest slides is around obviously the channels. So 53% of sales are actively coming from paid channels, and they can be measured, they can be monitored, and they can be improved. So it's important that you're always in constant contact with your service provider, with your account manager, and looking at ways that can be improved. Every single account has opportunity for improvement. And when we get to the kind of success story slides, you'll hear some of the amazing results our merchants are getting this year.
So yeah, just going on the success stories here. So we've picked out a few merchants who throughout the course of Q1 there have been performing well, and certain metrics have been going the right way. Just David and myself have broken this down. I've split it up, amongst the merchants that are currently sitting beneath us. So the first one there I'll allude to is Elizabeth Rose. So looking at Elizabeth Rose in Q1, sales are up by 36%. And that's largely in line with the sessions increase. So their sessions are up by 37%, and their CPA is actually down by 36%. So whenever we looked at what's actually driving that, we can see that the Facebook channel has actually been swapped out there for an affiliate channel. So really that switch and sort of channel focus has driven that CPA down, has driven the number of sessions, and has correlated with the actual sales figures there as well. Then the next one on my list there is Tennies. So Tennies sales are up by 28%, but just looking at their gross profit in Q1 there is up 53%, and there's been a massive increase in sessions. So it looks as if they've increased their spend on Google and decreased on the Facebook channel there. So that has really sort of driven gross profitability for Tennies. And then the final one there I'll allude to is Green Angel. So their sales are up by 34%. However, their gross profit is up by 91%, and their costs are down, which has driven a reduction of 55% in CPA. So it's just management of the channels and what you're actually spending. I think Google's a predominant channel there, and it just looks to be managed a whole lot more efficiently. So that has reduced their costs, and their sales are up as well there. So that's really drove higher profitability in that business.
And then a couple from my side that I oversee is CSM, not more around actually how they've adopted some of the functionality in IRP. So last Q4, obviously, jewelry company Argento, they rolled out the new personalization functionality across desktop and mobile. Personalization around gifting and Christmas is obviously a very, very important time of the year for them. And they seen it used to be 1 in 9 orders was personalized. It went from 1 in 9 to 3 in 9. So they've seen it by rolling out that new functionality with improved UX and user journeys across desktop and mobile. There was a massive uplift in the number of people actually personalize their items, and it's a big USP for them. A merchant in the fashion space, Janzara, for them this year, it's all been about profitability and getting the business under control. Things that sort of looking at their high level stats, they've cut back on traffic. This has resulted in a higher conversion rate, but they've really been focusing on using IRP data and working closely with their service providers. And off the back of that, they've been able to understand what products to push using Trader. And their service providers are utilizing that, and overall they've seen their CPA drop from 15% to 6%, and on that drop their sales are still growing. So it just shows you the power of the data and using that on your day to day. And you'll see as we go into the Trader slides in the latest release, we've been bringing the key metrics to the forefront. So again, everyone's busy. Not everyone has a lot of time to go through the data. And by simplifying what we show in Trader, you can get straight to the point in seconds.
Yeah, so just looking at Trader there and a few of the updates that have been made there, and David's talking about simplifying and bringing the core sort of metrics to the fore there. So whenever you're in the mission control and the key markets section there within Trader, you'll see that sessions conversion, average order value is now appearing there whenever it's sort of the first thing you see whenever you log into Trader. And below that, you'll see the sales and margin, gross profit, traffic cost, and e-commerce gross profit. So this is literally a sort of a 30-second exercise to log into your Trader there each day, and set your time frame if you want to see your profitability for the last day. And that is now visible within Trader there. It doesn't take long to really uncover that, and it's something that probably business owners are probably more sort of prone to wanting to know how things are going with the bottom line there. But that's really at the fore there whenever you log into Trader there. So it's good to have those metrics included. Moving on into sales analysis then. So there's been a new enhanced power filter here, and really you can see the metrics listed out there and just highlighted in red. So really one of the things David talked about there with Junzara was a very high level of returns. So we have returns level or returns percentages here at the product level, and that can lead to conversations with your service provider there around sort of paid advertising. If there are products that are driving high returns, you should reduce obviously your spend on those products, because they're going to really drive down your profitability within the business there. But definitely worth having a look there at those different filters that have now been included within sales analysis, really understanding your products there, using each of the sort of filters or the column headers at the top there. So clicking on views, for example, there, seeing which products are actually driving views to the site, and just having a look at those products, making sure that the product pages are fully optimized, and that you give yourself the best chance of converting the customer whenever they're actually on the product page. And then another new one that's been introduced here is time of day reporting. So this allows us to really delve into channels that are performing well on particular days. Just thinking of an example there, email marketing, is there a particular time of the day where customers are purchasing more? Would it be good to send an email at a certain time, around lunchtime on a Monday or Tuesday, where the customer thinks they might receive their order by the Friday? So that time of day reporting is included in there now. Worth having a conversation again with channel providers there, or if you're actually running your own email strategy, and just making use of that functionality that's now included within Trader.
And again, the time of day reporting, actually letting your service providers and working closely with your account manager on that. As you may want to, certainly with PPC making up 53% of sales, you may want to optimize your bid strategies around when it's best to use your budget. The next few slides, again, tying into product releases and improvements in Trader, but the overall ethos is helping you to understand your customer, what makes them convert, and what's going to make them convert time and time again. So in the latest release, we rolled out split testing. So that can be done at a CSS level, so you can change button colors, or at banner level. So you have your heading banners, your USP banners on homepage, listings pages, product pages, checkout, and basket. And you can do this on a country by country level as well. So you can really delve in and test to see what messaging works. And messaging is basically the biggest influencer of conversion rate on a site. If you're a UK business, do you need to be telling your merchants or your customers down south in Ireland that there's no VAT because you're based in NI, or really making it as easy? And it's all about removing the barriers to sale. So you can now have data around that to back up or qualify in or out your assumptions. And the test can be set to run for a specific time, and then you can measure the visitors, the conversion rate, and have a defined winner off the back of that. Incoming feedback as well has been improved. So you can really understand why customers are leaving the site, what's stopped them from buying, but you can also add it to the last stage of the order confirmation, order summary page, to understand and ask a question. Well, one, it could be, how did they discover you? And it ties back an additional data point. And then within the drop basket section, there's a new piece of functionality for the checkout funnel. So you can see per country at what steps your customers are dropping out. And you can actually tie that checkout funnel back into the incoming feedback. So if you have a high drop-off rate at the payment page or the summary, just ask your customers, well, what stopped them buying today? and you'll get a few nuggets of quality information that will really help and improve those areas.
So just off the back of that, we'll talk here quickly about previous product updates. Now, there are going to be more webinars, and we're going to be focusing on getting into this in greater depth, because something that we're sort of uncovering is that the merchants, account managers, agencies don't really know about all the sort of the functionality that's new and recent to IRP, or maybe stuff that's been there for years that hasn't really been used. So some of the most recent ones there, the positions tab and trader, delving really into channel performance there, and looking at sessions, conversion rate, average order value, and just understanding exactly how your business is performing there is definitely worthwhile keeping tabs on. Volumetric shipping weights, for those customers who are shipping larger products, or intend to ship larger products internationally, maybe that wasn't as profitable in the past, and that functionality is now available. Auto dispatch, splitting of orders, for operational efficiencies there through Intersoft. And we have TikTok integration, just to help try and drive additional sessions and traffic to the site. There's financial updates in Trader, which we've sort of touched on there in the last few slides, but we'll begin into more detail in the coming webinars, and also the gross to net waterfall. I think we'll be doing a similar sort of a webinar on net profitability and e-commerce, and looking at the potential overheads and the costs that you need to be keeping an eye on. Upgrades to product customization. So David gave the example of Argento there, 1 in 9 orders to 3 in 9 orders. So really how we can utilize that in the relevant merchants, and really try and drive up the customization and the user experience there on the different sites. And then finally, payment summary reporting. So there's in-depth reporting now on all your different payment methods and where customers are potentially failing, and what we can do then to try and drive up the leakage there from customers dropping out at the very last stage. So we'll cover those in more detail in following webinar. I think maybe next week or the week after we're scheduled to do that.
Thank you. And the very last slide for today then is really just obviously outlining CSM for 2023. So we kind of a couple of years ago introduced the CSM role, the CSM function, and it is all about making sure everything's joined up between your agency, your service providers, and your e-commerce managers and business owners. And we've tried a few different variations of that and how that functions. For 2023, we'll be running a quarterly trading analysis session, very, very similar to this, but we will also be aiming for weekly or bi-weekly 30-minute webinars, deep diving into functionality, how to best use success stories, and really sharing the positives, but also the challenges and how we overcome them. So for 2023, it really is about the ecosystem, working closely with agencies and account managers, and the service marketplace coming to the fore. We will be sending out emails and comms around the events that are set up in IRP. We'll always try and work sort of four weeks ahead, so you'll have an idea of what's coming up, if it's relevant to join or not. And to all attendees and signups, we will be sending out a recording afterwards, so that you can revisit and watch back at your own time as well. That's kind of everything on the slides that we wanted to cover today. Just conscious of time, just want to say thank you very much to everyone who joined. I hope you found it beneficial. We will be continuing to improve and offering more value from these sessions. I hope everyone's taken at least one or two key things away of how they can look at the data and use that to move their business forward. But if anyone has one or a few questions, we're happy to stay around for a minute or two and answer those off. Again, if anyone doesn't have any questions or anything, you're more than welcome just to jump off. But I say once again, from Richard and myself, thanks very much for joining today, and we'll see you shortly on another webinar.